Hey, Rob Aubrey here with Insider Training from WantMoreLeads.com. This week, this video is myth 3 of the myth busting the VA home loan. So we're on myth 3, and this is VA appraisals are tougher. And we're actually breaking this one down into 4 sections. So this might be a little longer, but there's 4 sections on the appraisal. Number 1 is they take longer. Well, there's no statistical evidence to say that at all. There's none. In fact, statistics say that the VA loan appraisals are typically quicker, especially in a little bit of slower market like we are today. Now, in a runaway market where there's so many transactions going on, everything was slower. But in today's climate, the appraisals are getting done fairly quick. The next one, this is the big one, right? They come in too low. Now, again, there's no statistical evidence to support that. That's the fact. So the belief is that most people don't do a lot of VA loans. So if they've had one come in low, they just kind of remember that more than they did all the other transactions they've done. Now, they might have done 30 conventional types and had one come in low. They don't remember the one, and they might have done 2 VA and they remembered the one. So that's the psychology behind it. That's believed to be why that permeates. Now, there have been cases where there have been some appraisers that were notoriously for doing it. And if they are, report them to me. I will report them to the VA. I will clean them up. I will get them scolded, ousted if I can. I want them out just as much as everybody else. But for the most part, there's no statistical data to support that VA coming lower than all the other ones. Remember, it's the same appraiser. The VA appraiser doesn't just do VA. They do conventional. They do FHA, USDA. It's just that only a certain group, that apply to become a VA appraiser can do those. So they go into a different kind of appraisal pool where, like, your FHA conventional, they go through an AMC. So VA kind of has a different pool. It's not an AMC, but it's an approved VA appraiser. So again, no statistical evidence that supports it. So, and then remember earlier, I told you the VA buyer, on average, they're getting a 0 down loan, but they had $56,000 liquid. So let's say an appraisal came in a little low. Who's has the likelihood of covering a little bit of a gap? But let's talk about it. If the appraiser believes that it's coming in low, there's 2 things they can do. And so now the conventional, I believe, or FHA has started to take on, they don't call it Tidewater, but VA practices a thing called Tidewater. And so what Tidewater means is if the appraiser believes that they're, looking at the data and say, we're not going to hit value, they invoke Tidewater, and they have to do it. It's not an option. They can't just like spring a low appraisal on you. So they're going to invoke Tidewater. Tidewater is like, the reason why it's called Tidewater, it was piloted in an area called Tidewater, Virginia. So that's it. There's nothing magical about the name other than that's where it was. So the first thing is they alert everybody. We have 48 hours to get everybody on board to help the appraiser. So, I'm like, buyer's agent, you start pulling comps. Listing agent, you start compiling a list of every dime that was ever spent, every minute upgrade ever done on the home. If there was a nail nailed to improve the home, I want to know about it. Get it in a document, get it over to me. And then we get the new comps up. Comps are best. If you can show comps, that's always best. And so, and then we do that. Now, if Tidewater fails and the appraiser doesn't budge, or maybe it gives a little bit, but not enough, then there's a second option, and that's called ROV, which is reconsideration of value. And it's conventional, or I think Fannie Mae is the one that's going to start piloting that now, and they're looking at how to do that. And so what reconsideration of value is, it has to come from the veteran. The veteran can go to the VA and appeal and say, I understand this is the appraised value. I want to appeal. I want to buy the home anyway. I'll tell you a quick story. And this is an agent that took my class. I have a 1-hour CE class on this, and they took my class and they learned this process, and they went and they had a circumstance where they were under contract for like $760, and the appraisal came in at $680. Now, it turned out it was a lazy appraiser. It was in a rural community. So what the appraiser did was chose closer proximity sales and did large adjustments, where he should have went further out and found a better comparable sales, properties more similar rather than taking closer proximity and making wild adjustments. And so the veteran was like happy with 760. The buyer's agent and the listing agent both had all the comps to support the price. So they appealed and they went to the VA. And the VA, what they did, the VA gave them the county loan limit, and the county loan limit at that particular time was 747. So not too bad, right? So they went from 680 to 747 and maybe took an extra week. Now, no other product, now Fannie Mae's starting to do it, but there's no other product that can do all that other than the VA. So if you're a listing agent, I want you to hear that. So if you got an appraisal issue and the buyer doesn't have any money, you're pretty much out of luck. And so with the VA, the buyer can throw in some money. They can get some appraisal adjustments and that kind of stuff. Maybe Tidewater kicks in a little. If that doesn't work, the reconsideration of value works. So there's a lot that can be done with the VA home loan that you can't do with other products. And so the next one is, next methods they're too stringent on, and we call it MPR. M as in minimum property requirements. That's like the condition of the home. So the main condition of the home is safe, sound, and sanitary, right? Sanitary meaning the plumbing works, the septic tank is functioning and all that kind of good stuff. Safe is, electrical wires aren't hanging out, all the plumbing, just things like that, not major holes in the roof. Now, and so there's a thing where, let's say there's a minor thing, say a cracked window or whatever, a trip hazard, and the VA appraiser calls for it in the appraisal. Well, the veteran can submit what's called a waiver of MPR, an MPR waiver, and they can basically tell the VA, hey, look, I'm aware of this trip hazard, whatever, and the VA looks at it and says, yeah, if it's not a big deal, they waive it. And so it doesn't have to be repaired. Where if you have an FHA and they call for appraisal required repairs, they have to be completed prior to closing unless it's a weather-related condition, say roof shingles are missing and there's a foot of snow. Well, then, the appraiser saw the roof prior to the foot of snow. That can wait. And it has to be 150% of the value has to be escrowed, things like that. Where the veteran's like, hey, look, there's 12 shingles missing. There's a bundle of shingles in the garage. I'm good. Let's just get that wave. Let's move on. And so, that's another reason, that another thing you can do with the VA appraisal that you can't do with other programs. And the last, but certainly not least, is the appraisal stays with the home. That is not true. Simply not true. We call that don't FHA my VA loan. And so in our market here in Utah, I think there's a lot of confusion with FHA VA because we have the FHA VA loan addendum. And so everybody thinks they're the same. Well, they're not. They're night and day. I mean, 1,500 and something page guideline versus 620 page guideline. I mean, hello. So there's a lot of things you can do with the VA loan that you cannot do with other loan programs. So as listing agents, I'm telling you that you want to start looking for VA loans because you can fix problems. I'd rather wait 3 or 4 days fixing a problem that can be solved rather than going back on the market and starting all over and hope you don't get the same problem again, right? Because if you have a problem with one, you're probably going to have the same problem with the next buyer. So let's get a VA buyer and fix it and close. There you go, right? Again, Rob Aubrey with Insider Training from wantmoreleads.com. Any questions, call me. Even if I'm not involved in a transaction, more than happy to help the veteran, 801-999-8209. Thanks. Make it an awesome day.